Hey everyone, my name is James, welcome to my channel. It's nice to have you here, and if you're new here, I'll just give you a little rundown on what this is all about. So guys, I'm a student, I'm also really into travel, so this channel is all about my lifestyle surrounding student travel. And later on in the year, I'm going to be moving abroad as well, so I'm going to keep you guys updated on my journey too. So at the beginning of January, I headed to Bergen in Norway, and this was my first time in Bergen. If you don't know Bergen, it is one of the biggest cities in Norway, so the capital of Norway is of course Oslo, and then you have Bergen as well, which is one of the next most popular tourist cities. And Bergen is really well known because it is on the coastline, and it's got a harbour which is really beautiful, and it's also really well known for its old houses, and you also have a harbour lined with UNESCO heritage old houses. I will put the name on the screen of the harbour now. And yes, so it's really important to check that out while you're in Bergen. But today I want to talk about with you guys and something in particular, which is in fact the Bergen Card, which is what I'm holding here. So I'm just going to zoom it onto the screen so you can have it in focus and have a better look at it. There we go. So that's the front of the Bergen Card, and this is the back of the Bergen Card. Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, well, what's that to do with anything? Because it's just a piece of cardboard, right? Bergen Card is just a piece of cardboard, but it's not, it's more than that. So I wanted to get into that with you guys today. So let's go. So if you guys are well traveled, you may well know that a lot of different cities and their tourism boards often offer these kind of deals or travel cards for their tourists. And that is what the Bergen Card exactly is. So for example, I've been to a lot of different cities over the last year. I've been to Cologne, I've been to Hamburg, been to lots of cities across Germany. And for example, when I was in Cologne, there was the Corn card, or in Hamburg, there was a similar equivalent. And these cities and their tourism boards design these cards for tourists to buy. And the aim of these cards is then, of course, for the tourists to buy the cards. And normally what's included in them is public transport and often museum entries or other benefits as well, which are used to attract the tourists to buy these kind of all-in-one deals, so to say. And this is where the Bergen Card comes in, because when you're in Bergen, if you're a tourist, you've never been there before, you want to see everything, and in particular, you want to see all of the museums, then that is where I can recommend you guys the Bergen Card. But what I wanted to really talk about today is the Bergen Card worth the price? And that is what I'm going to be kind of assessing into question with you guys, because in fact, it is not actually as cheap as you may think. For example, like I just said, I've been to Cologne, and in Cologne, the Corn card costs €9 per day. And under that, you get unlimited public transport within the city for that 24-hour period. Now, the Bergen Card is similar, but the difference in Bergen is that when you arrive at Bergen Airport, assuming that you're flying to Bergen, there are two main ways to get to Bergen. So you can either fly to Bergen Airport, which is the most popular option, or you can go to Oslo, fly to Oslo, and then you can take a train ride, which takes 6.5 hours from Oslo to Bergen. Now, when you come into Bergen on the train, obviously you're in the city centre, you may have booked a hotel, you may have booked an Airbnb in the nearby zone, you may not need public transport, but if you are coming in to the airport, you will need to take you can either take the express bus, which takes 30 minutes. Now, this is quite expensive, so I do actually advise against this, and what I would advise is to take the number 1 tram. That's the number 1 tram, and that will take you directly from the airport to the city centre. The journey takes about 55 minutes in total. Now, with the Bergen Card, this journey then becomes free under what you've bought. So that is a big advantage of the Bergen Card in the first instance. But however, on my way into Bergen, I actually bought a ticket for this tram ride. And this tram ride only cost me £4 for one way. So you need to take that into consideration. I don't know exactly what that is in Norwegian kroner, because I'm not very familiar with the exchange rate. I think it's about 10 kroner to £1. UK pound. So in that comparison, we'll be looking at about 40 krona for the train ticket, for the tube ticket. Yeah, so that is a big consideration to make because I'm going to go through with you guys the different price differences for the Bergen Card and therefore whether it is worth it. A big advantage of the Bergen Card is public transport. Like I've just said, you'll take the tram from the airport to the city centre, and that journey in itself is covered in the Bergen Card. So let's imagine you're arriving at Bergen Airport, and then you'll also be departing from Bergen Airport again. So those two journeys in total will cost you about £8 or 80 Norwegian kroner. So we'll compare that into the prices in a second. But you also get public transport around Bergen included as well during your time in Bergen. Now, what I did notice while I was staying in Bergen is that, so I stayed in an Airbnb relatively close to the city centre, so I was probably about 20 minutes by foot away from the main the main tram stop, the main bus station. And I was about 10 minutes away from the harbour, so I was really in a central location. I was really in a prime location to be staying in. And my Airbnb actually cost £150 for 3 nights, and I stayed on my own. And it didn't have a fully equipped kitchen, but it did have like a cold kitchen, so it had a kettle and things like that. So if you wanted to make salads or sandwiches, there was a fridge as well. So that was really useful. I will, what I will do for you guys is I will link the, in the description below, I will link the Airbnb I stayed in as well, in case you are looking for a property to stay in while you are in Bergen. So, obviously, what I found out during my experience in Bergen is actually it was not so necessary to have the Bergen Card if you were just relying on it for public transport. And I will say this because, in fact, when you're in Bergen, the buses don't really run through the different streets, so you're actually going to be relying on going to different places by foot. So, in fact, the Bergen Card does not offer much benefit in this scenario. However, in terms of public transport, the company Skis, which is listed on the bottom of the Bergen Card, just down there in the corner. This is the company which is responsible for the buses and the tram in Bergen. Now, this company actually offers with the Bergen Card, it offers unlimited transport in the entire region, not just in Bergen itself. So for example, if you're going to ride with Skis to the nearby city Voss, or you're going to head to a waterfall or somewhere else, even 5 hours away on the bus, this ticket is then gold because it will take you anywhere on this bus line for free within the period of your stay. And that is really crazy. And I didn't make the use of that during my time in Bergen because I just didn't have enough time to fit in everything that I wanted to do, and the weather was also very miserable in January, so I decided to stay local. However, if you're going in nice weather, you are relying on buses, then you may really want to take the Bergen Card into consideration. Also, I headed to the Gamle Museum, and as I said before, one of the key things about staying in Bergen is actually heading up to see the traditional houses, because that is one of the most charming and charismatic things about the city. So I really recommend you then take the bus, which you can then use your Bergen Card for, although no one did check the bus tickets itself, but of course I always recommend actually buying a ticket. And yeah, so you can then use this to head to the museum, or also grants you free entry into the museum as well. And that gets me onto my next point about the Bergen Card, is what else do you get included in the Bergen Card itself? So let's get onto that. Well, you get free entry to a lot of museums in Bergen and discounted entry to pretty much all of the rest. So for example, I headed to the Science Museum and that was free entry. I headed to the Cold Art Museum and also to the Bergen Kunsthal. And these all cost about 150 kroner normally to enter. So about £15 to enter. But with the Bergen Card, you do get free entry to all of those. So if you are heading to Bergen, you are thinking, I'm going to be riding on public transport, I'm going to be maxing out my museum visits, then you want to get the Bergen Card. Because actually it is then going to become really good value. But what you don't really want to do is buy the Bergen Card and then think, I need to get my money's worth, where am I going to go? Oh, here are some museums, I don't really have much interest in them. and then you're kind of just going to be heading to these museums and thinking, well, why am I wasting my time? That's not what I want you guys to be doing. I want you guys to be making an informed purchase about this card. If you think it is worth it for you personally, then I recommend to buy it. It's also important to note the restrictions on the card. For example, like I said, I got entry to the Science Museum, which normally costs about 240 krona. And that is about 24-25 UK pounds, which is a lot of money. And I will get into the prices of the card itself in a second, so we can compare how that fits into everything. But you've got to remember that there are restrictions on the card. For example, if you head to Bergen in July and August, you will not be able to take the free entry into the Science Museum, because they block out these months because they're the peak months. And they say, no, if you want to go to the Science Museum, you have to pay full price. The other thing that is really useful for this is actually, if you're looking to head on some fjord tours, for example, I headed on the Mostraumen fjord tours with Rodney Fjord Cruise, which I can really recommend. With the Bergen Card, you'll often get a 15-20% discount. So if you're looking to do those tours as well and spend some time in the city, this can also really help in terms of a positive financial gain overall. The other thing that is really good, which you get with the Bergen Card, is you get a 50% discount on the Fløyen funicular, which takes you up to Mount Fløyen. And I cannot recommend you guys this experience enough. This is probably absolutely the best thing that I saw in Bergen. I took up the funicular from the city centre up to Mount Fløyen, and then I went hiking on the snowy trails. I also headed up to the lake at the top. There's a cafe. And the lake was completely frozen over as well. It was absolutely beautiful. I've got so many photos, got so many videos, which you guys can all see on my Instagram page. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure to go and follow me on Instagram as well. But yeah, I've got so many amazing photos, and I also collected so many amazing memories up there. As I said, I'm a student. I headed to this location. I headed to Bergen solo. So I did a solo trip to Bergen, and that was probably my favourite day, heading up to Mount Fløyen. Make sure, of course, you've got the right footwear as well, so make sure you're wearing snow boots. Heading up to Mount Fløyen and checking out the snowy hiking trails was absolutely beautiful. The other thing you can actually do from the top of Mount Fløyen is you can then hike across to Mount Ulriken, and there is also supposed to be a really beautiful destination. I did not want to do that because the weather, as I said, was very unpredictable, and I didn't want to get caught out in any snowstorms or get into trouble, especially as I was on my own. So I just wanted to stay careful. But the other thing the Bergen Card will get you is 10% off the cable car up to Mount Ulriken, which was actually closed during my visit for yearly maintenance work as I headed in the off season. This is what I would just throw in today with you guys as well. I headed to Bergen at the beginning of January. And at the beginning of January, this is the off-season, this is the low season, and it was really quiet. I've never actually seen a city so quiet in my life before, and I think it must have just been kind of the low season. It wasn't a touristy time of year, the weather was bad, it was raining, it was cold, it was dark. But if you're looking to head somewhere when it's out of season, then I really recommend heading to Bergen at the beginning of January. I think that's why you can get things for cheaper price. It will be quieter when you're there as well. There's a lot of benefits, of course, to that as well, and then the Bergen Card fits into that too. So prices of the Bergen Card. So for 24 hours, it costs 340 Norwegian krona. For 48 hours, it costs 420 Norwegian krona, and for 96 hours it costs 580 Norwegian krona. So as you noticed, as the hours go up, the price difference actually gets smaller. And therefore, what I'm going to go out and make a bold statement here is if you're staying for 96 hours, aka 4 days, I really recommend the Bergen Card. No matter what your plans are, if you're just planning on playing it by ear, seeing how it goes, maybe going to a few museums, maybe riding a bit of public transport. If you're staying there for 96 hours, the Bergen Card costs 580 krona. It's about 58 pounds. And really, when you take this into account, if you're staying over a longer period, it's actually probably going to be worth it. But for 24 hours, it costs 340 krona, which is 34 pounds, and only for 24 hours. Now, I really have to put it into question, because how much are you actually going to be able to see of a city in 24 hours? You're not going to be able to see all the museums in 24 hours. You're not going to be riding very far on public transport in 24 hours. So I feel like the price point of £34 for only 24 hours is very expensive. And if you're only going for 1 or 2 days to Bergen, then I do not recommend buying the Bergen card. I would recommend just paying everything that you want to see, just paying it outright, because in fact it is going to work out cheaper. But if you're staying for 3 or 4 days, this 96-hour period, then I recommend getting the Bergen card. So to summarize up and answer the question of, is the Bergen card worth it when you're visiting Bergen for a few days as a tourist? As I've explained, it is a means of way to have kind of everything all included in one. You either get discounts, for example, 50% off on the funicular up to Mount Ulriken, 10% off on the cable car up to Mount Ulriken, and you also get free public transport included and free entry to a number of museums as well. If you are planning on riding a lot of public transport, such as to faraway cities like City of Voss, then I really recommend getting the Bergen card. If you are planning on visiting a lot of museums throughout your stay, then it is really worth it as well, because these museums cost about 15 to 20 pounds, or about 20 euros if we're going to convert it into European currency, obviously, as well. And this money obviously really adds up. So this then makes the Bergen card really worth it. But if you're only staying for 24 or 48 hours, then you really want to consider, is this worth my money? Because I actually think that buying everything separately would be better value. So please make sure to have a little bit of research, check actually what you're planning on doing while you're in Bergen, if you're planning on making any trips further away, how much you're planning on actually using the card, how much you're planning on using public transport, how many museums you're planning on visiting, and then you can kind of take everything into consideration and come to a conclusion, is the Bergen card worth for me? Because at the end of the day, you guys need to decide that. I cannot decide that for you. I'm just here to help you guys with tips, and I hope this video has helped you guys. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. If this video has helped you, make sure to like this video, and also head over to my Instagram page as well and give me a follow there. I'm looking forward to you guys, speaking to you guys in the next video, and until then, let's say goodbye.